Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Hear that? That's the beginning of a journey powered by the confidence that comes from driving a vehicle so reliable, it's backed by a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty. Where your journey ends? Well, that's up to you. Visit your local Kia dealer today. Kia, movement that inspires.
See retailer for warranty details. Always drive safely. Limited inventory available.
Tape Deck Media.
Hi there, I am Kelly Zemnikas, and I am the host of a brand new podcast called Holler and Wine. I'm a stand-up comedian, I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I genuinely love talking to people. And despite the fact that I do not care for the sound of my own voice, I've got a podcast now. So please come join us. We're going to have really good conversations. We're going to talk about cocktails, and I am going to give my guests a tarot card reading because why not? So join us on Holler and Wine. Hope to see you soon. Well, it's a podcast, so it's hear you soon? That sounds weird.
Ruddle me this, ruddle me that. We got the riddles that'll make you chat. Oh yeah, baseline stuff been through this tight. Get your funk on, we're rocking tonight. One more time.
Good morning, Ruddle Maniacs. Welcome back to another episode of Ruddle Me This podcast. I am, as always, your host, Taylor Ruddle. We are already into the third week of the year. Crikey, it is true what they say as you get older. The days are long and the years are short. Feels like it's been ages since I have sat down and done some of the editing to the podcast, so delighted to be back. Hopefully the background noise isn't too bad. I just heard a truck go past. One of the joys of living on a busy road, I guess. So today's episode is going to be a little bit of a sleeper hit, I think. I was put in touch with the guest for today, a guy called Kevin from the podcast Where the Weird Ones Are, over from the US of A. We mention and shout out Jen Noseworthy a couple of times for putting us in touch, so thank you, Jen, if you are listening, for setting this one up. Kevin and I really didn't know a lot about each other, except we do have a shared interest in the paranormal, so we were going to have a little bit of a chat about what his podcast is about and just America and that kind of fascination I have with folklore and kind of America. And Kevin brought with him a list of 5 tiny joys, and I have to say, even though there were some kind of not simple tiny joys, but ones that maybe most people wouldn't even think about throughout their week, and we ended up getting into some really cool kind of deep territory about like existentialism and almost like the meaning of life and that kind of thing. So it ended up being a really, really interesting conversation to have. So we'll get straight into it, but before that, a couple of quick plugs to get out of the way. So as always, the 2 quiz nights, Holy Moly or Archie Brothers on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at Moi Moi. Both quizzes are at 6:30 p.m. They're back on. Started up a couple of weeks ago, and we're just fully into the swing of things now. And of course, The Laugh Cellar, my little stand-up comedy show at the Austin Club on Thursdays. We look like we're going to be promoted up to doing every single Thursday of the month instead of all except for the last Thursday. As for right now, we're still 3 out of 4 Thursdays, but I'm hoping that we'll get their green light to go ahead every week, which should make it a lot easier to promote going forward. This weekend, we also have got the sort of opening couple of shows to David Correos's Noise Zealand comedy tour. If you've been listening for a while, you'll remember we went on tour a couple of years ago and did a new material tour. This is going to be very much in a similar vein to that. I'm going to be doing 30 minutes of new sort of jokes from what's turning out to be my new show. I think we're going to call that show Baruza. So those shows are on the 24th and 25th of January 2025. We are doing 6 o'clock on both nights, and then we're doing a late show at 8:30 p.m. on the Saturday. Just go to www.candocomedy.com/tickets and you'll be able to get your tickets there. Alrighty, so without any further ado, let's get our guest onto the podcast. So, Ruddle Maniacs, please welcome to the show, Kevin from Where the Weird Ones Are. Hello, Kevin. Welcome to Ruddle Me This. It's delightful to have you on.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
We have to give a shout out to Jen Noseworthy of Paranormal NL for kind of putting us in touch. She is a networking machine, so shout out to Jen if you're listening.
Yes, shout out to her for sure. She is definitely making her rounds, and she's kind of like, I guess, building a family in a way kind of thing, where she's just constantly putting people in touch with other people just to have these fun conversations. Absolutely.
I feel so bad though, because I have such a backlog that I have to like really space out my paranormal guests. So it's I always feel bad when she'll introduce me to new people and think like, it's going to be several months before I have a chance to talk to them. But here we are now. I think you might be the first or second one that I've been put in touch with. So yeah, awesome to chat with you. I guess quickly, if you've got an elevator pitch for your Where the Weird Things Are for my listeners, in case they're interested in checking it out, what can they expect from you?
So I guess Where the Weird Ones Are is a conversational based podcast that's revolves around guest experiences with paranormal, supernatural. We talk about mental health because mental health goes so far into the paranormal stuff. When you're experiencing this stuff, sometimes people don't know where to turn or where to go. We talk about spirituality a lot because that, again, religion and all that stuff kind of falls into that category as well. And then we do some dives into conspiracies over there as well.
Oh, awesome. I love this is something we haven't quite got in New Zealand, but I first sort of learned about this through seeing, I think it's called like Cryptid Crate, and it was one of those subscription, every month you get some cryptid stuff, and like it had these awesome things where it would be like Sasquatch and he's in like a road trip on like in like a Cadillac or something. And a friend of mine recently cycled across the US and he stopped in Roswell and the whole town is covered in UFOs and aliens. And I just love that. I love how people in the States just embrace these things. And it's almost like you could almost think of like the Sasquatch as like an old friend, or do you know what I mean? Like there's this kind of familiarity with them. Yeah, and I just love that about the States.
It's like all these things it's kind of like each individual area has their own Santa Claus kind of thing where like I don't necessarily want them to be real, but the fascination and the dream and the imagination around all of it is fun.
Yes, absolutely. And like I was just thinking the other day about like the Loch Ness monster. The funniest thing is like if I ever encountered the Loch Ness monster, I would probably run up to it and be like, Nessie, I've heard so much about you, blah, blah, and then not realizing that this is probably a really dangerous animal that doesn't want anything to do with me. So it's I find cryptids and things like that just fascinating, how we just want, yeah, it's like you say, some of them you don't want to be real, but like, wouldn't it be amazing to encounter like a Sasquatch or something in the wild?
It would be. It would be. There's so many. There's so many encounter stories, and they're vastly different from one another. Sometimes it's hard to gauge whether some people are telling the truth or not. And I mean, I would never try and debate anybody's personal story because regardless of it actually happening, the emotions and the feelings are still there with it. So, but it's fun to speculate.
Yeah, I actually have the exact same point of view as you on that. I do a lot of ghost story episodes, or I'll do sort of sporadic ones. I try to get ghost stories from New Zealand out there, and People, I think, are worried that I'm going to be trying to debunk their stories and stuff. But the way I see it is like, if you believe that that experience happened, then, well, who am I to tell you that it didn't, kind of thing, right?
Right, right, right.
So, I was fascinated to talk to you about the state that you're in, which is Maine, because for those of us overseas that are sort of vaguely familiar with, how each US state has its sort of own character, I kind of know of Maine through the Stephen King novels. A lot of his stuff is set in Maine, and I was just curious, does the state have a kind of reputation for being spooky or particularly cryptid or ghost story heavy, or is that just through the association with Stephen King that people kind of associate that with horror?
I mean, I think a lot of towns in the state are very spooky-esque. Like everybody has their own little lore. Um, and actually, believe it or not, this town that I live in now, that I grew up in, was voted last year in 2023 the most haunted town in all of Maine.
Wow.
So yeah, and so it kind of it actually inspired me to create my own documentary and started make so now I have this fascination and this idea of just doing like small town documentaries all over the United States and possibly, if depending on where it goes, maybe even going overseas and stuff, other countries and stuff. But like I wanted to start here and talk to locals about ghost stories and stuff like that, the history of the town and all that. And I thought that was pretty cool. And Stephen King is everybody knows Stephen King obviously through his work is amazing, and I've loved him growing up. I actually got the chance to meet him in the hospital. We were visiting my grandfather when I was like 13, and he happened to be in the hallway, and my dad just walked up to him and started talking. They just started talking like they were old friends. It was amazing.
Wow. That's awesome, man. I was gonna say I actually had to Google where Maine was because in my head, Maine was always somewhere kind of in the Midwest, but it's actually almost in Canada, isn't it? It's up north, almost kind of on the
Yeah.
East Coast. So is it a quite a cold state most of the year?
Yes. Like as of right now, it's about 30 degrees. I know you guys do Celsius,
Yeah.
so
I have no idea how to convert that over to us.
yeah, I think it's like maybe somewhere between 0 to 5 degrees
Yeah.
Celsius, if I'm
Yeah, okay, that's real
correct.
cold, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So, it was one of the first colonized states, when America was first colonized. So it used
right.
to be technically Massachusetts. It was like a by part of Massachusetts.
That makes sense. I've been reading the Jack Reacher series kind of on and off, and there was one that was set in what is that part of upstate New York? Is that the Hamptons?
Yes.
And that's like a quite a rich, fancy kind of area. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yes, you're correct.
So then if you're going north and then you keep going north, does that mean the Hamptons is quite like well off as well, or does it sort of scale back when you get out of the Hamptons?
Um, well, I think so. New York is a little bit lower than
Yeah.
Maine, I think, if I'm correct.
Hmm.
But it's essentially the same, I
Right.
think. It's like as in, well, do you mean like does it get like less richy and fancy
Yeah.
as
Is it
you
is it
leave the
but
hand? Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean
Uh
that most of that area is pretty nice, like upstate New York and all that.
yeah.
But there's $1 million homes all over the place out there
Yeah.
in that area, and think it becomes a lot of many people don't believe that New York is separate from New York City, but
Of course, yeah.
there's a lot of nicety to New York. I think the
Yeah.
more of like the scaled back stuff would be towards the city.
Yes. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're sort of moving in that direction as well, where the people that have money are leaving the cities over here in New Zealand, but obviously the scale is much, much, much smaller. Um, I was going to say as well, your idea of doing these mini documentaries is really cool. I think what always blows my mind a little bit is that like when I look at the maps of the US, these little towns, well, which would be considered little towns by American standards, are still bigger than a lot of the cities that we have here in New Zealand. So the scale of it is so different for me, like what's considered like a small town. But I think as well the where was I going with this? When you do these things here, what could be quite cool is I imagine you're going to be uncovering a town that like, everybody knows Roswell as the aliens town. And what
Yeah.
is the other one? Salem, is that the witch trial city?
Yep. Yeah.
I th
Salem, Massachusetts.
What could be quite cool is you might be establishing some new kind of lore, like this city is where this kind of ghost happened. And do you have your sights set on any ones in particular that you've been wanting to look at after your town that you're in now?
There's another town. Well, it's a city technically, about 45 minutes north of me, called Biddeford, but it's also up. So there's the Saco River that goes between them, and it's the town of Saco and the city of Biddeford, and they're basically like they're two different um spots. They operate differently. They have their own town halls and all this crap, but they're technically one
Hmm.
in a sense. And the Saco River actually has an old Native American curse on it. So I kind of want to get
Oh,
into that next. And it would also still be fairly close, so I don't have to travel right away.
yeah.
So I'm hoping to start filming for the one in my town this spring because I don't want to film in the winter. I don't want to be
Yeah.
out walking around trying to talk to
Yeah.
people in the middle
Next
of
to
the
a
winter.
river. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was thinking as
So,
well, I could probably quickly tell you about because we, much like America, we have a colonial history here in New Zealand, and
mhm.
we have a cryptid that I could possibly teach you about. Have you ever heard of a tardifar before?
No,
So
I have not.
this is an New Zealand sort of, I don't know whether it's a cryptid or more like a spiritual kind of thing, like a mythology. You know how like you could say a cyclops isn't really a cryptid.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which it falls under, but they are we've got these wood carvings of what they believed Taniwha to look like, and they're sort of presented as being like guardians of bodies of water, so like rivers and lakes and everything like that. And they're sort of it's one of those things where people think that they might have been seeing bits of a whale or some other large sea creature and just being like, "Yep, there it is. That's the Taniwha there." So maybe we could talk a little bit more about that if I'm a guest on your podcast. That might be something your listeners might not know of. But yeah, I just thought you might be interested to hear about a New Zealand cryptid.
Yeah, absolutely. We could so I got like you, I ended up getting booked out, and I
Yeah.
recently scaled back my own kind of thing because I was doing like 2 to 3 interviews a week and
Hmm.
putting out 2 episodes a week, and I was like, man, this is too much.
Yeah.
I just had a little girl and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
thank you. And I was
It
like, you know
wears you
what?
out though, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Your
It's
voice
fun.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's nights where I'm like, I really want to have the conversation, but I'm like, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
So I switched it to one a week.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to maintain it like that. So
Yeah.
currently out to February. So
Awesome.
we'll when we're done recording, we should definitely set something up.
That sounds great. So let's get into your tiny joys. Did you make a list of five this time?
I didn't write out the list. I kind of have it
Hmm.
up in my
You got
head.
some in your head? Okay,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I have a few. So
Alrighty.
one
Why
of
don't
the
you?
one
Yeah.
one of them would be watching my kids, like
Yeah.
doing anything.
Yeah.
Just just sitting in the living room or whatever. Just I have 2 teenagers and now a baby, and it's always been a joy of mine just to observe them doing whatever they're doing, just being themselves. Like my son with his Legos or my daughter doing her hair. and now she's starting to get into makeup, which I'm not a fan of, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to watch her um uh play around. She does my daughter used to, she's not really into it now, but she used to make TikTok videos like crazy.
Hmm.
And she was freaking hilarious, and it was awesome just to sit there in the background and watch the
Yeah.
process.
Oh, that's
So
awesome. I think it's fascinating to watch a baby or a toddler trying to work something out and seeing the gears in their head turn, and as they try to think like, okay, how am I gonna get the result that I want? And seeing them kind of develop that is always great. Yeah, oh, that's brilliant. I also think I love watching like kittens and puppies as well, because they're a similar level of like everything's new to you at that point. So it's kind of like you're watching them, you watch a kitten or a puppy experience snow for the first time and you think like, damn, that's a big moment for them.
yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
and the freak out,
The freak out?
especially with snow. Yeah, then when they
Yeah.
encounter snow for the first time and they're like, "What the hell is this? What is this?" And they're like running in circles and stuff and rolling in
Yeah,
it, and it's hilarious.
that's right. Oh, that's brilliant. Is there any kind of like, because I'm not, I suspect I probably won't have children, but you never know. Never say never, but it's never been a particular goal of mine. When you first had your children, did you kind of notice anything? I've heard that like suddenly all your priorities just completely shift, and you think like, it's not about me anymore. Did you have that kind of shift when your kids came along, or was there anything that kind of changed when your children were
Yeah,
born?
yeah. So my son was born the day after I turned 20, and he was my first. Um, and I was not necessarily going down like a really bad path, but I was kind of going down a bad path. I kind of put it
Right.
in this. I probably would have ended up j in jail or dead.
Wow.
Although it's not really that bad. Or at least it didn't seem like that bad.
Hmm.
But I could tell by the circle of people that I had around me at the time and the things that I was doing and the things that I liked to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't really good circumstances. I was cage
Mm.
fighting. I
Wow.
was so I used to be an amateur cage fighter, and I was not making money. Um
Sounds like an amateur
and
comedian. I'm familiar with that
yeah,
world.
yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
I did four fights. I won three and lost one, and I most of the money was spent on getting there in food,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and all that. So when my son was born, um, it was just like, hey man, I gotta get a real job, and that's what I did.
Wow.
And back then, I was making $12.50. And I was supporting a family of four. So I was supporting,
Wow.
or yeah, four. So
Wow.
three, I should say. Three,
Yeah.
actually. My bad. So it was me, my ex-wife, and my son. So
Yeah.
it was really easy back then. And I don't know, it's weird to think just freaking 16 years ago how little money I needed to make to be happy. And
Yeah.
always was like wanted more and all that.
That's
But
right.
yeah, I definitely had that switch where I was just like, I need to start making moves to make sure that this kid is the best that he can be.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm glad that you've managed it seems that you've managed to really turn it around. So well done. I was gonna say the talking about how little money you needed. It's fascinating to watch like old episodes of The Simpsons and think that they've got this 5, 6 bedroom house that they pay for just off the back of one parent working
Yeah.
at a nuclear plant. Um, and I was thinking about this. I'm sort of trying to write a stand-up bit at the moment about what are millennials and Gen Z, what are we going to do to pull the ladder up after us? Like, there's the jokes that like the boomers, ruined the housing market and then kind of left it in shambles for us. And I was thinking about this in the car the other day, and I thought, I wonder if our generation are going to be looking back at the early days of ChatGPT and thinking like, man, things were good here, and AI and robots. We're sort of getting in this unregulated Wild West era where they're sort of just making things and seeing what happened. And I wonder if in another 10, 20 years, robots are going to be really shitty and overpriced, and we're going to sort of be looking back on it and thinking like, yeah, it's wild how good they were for, free. You can get ChatGPT to do a whole bunch of stuff for free. So I don't know, just some musings I had. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, as far as your joke, I have no thoughts, but
Yeah,
yes, the I think that I think we're gonna be like, where the fuck did we go wrong? And we're not gonna be able to know what is real, technically.
exactly. Yeah,
So we're gonna be like, what did we do?
that's right.
Why did we go down this path?
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
you
so
know,
hard to,
I think it's funny the generation thing. Well, like people always like, my generation was better because of this. My
hmm
generation was better than this. And I'm like, well, who the fuck? Like, so Gen X is like, oh, I was drinking water out of a
out of the
fucking
tap,
hose off the
the
spigot
hose.
out of
Yeah.
the house, the side of the house. And I'm like, because I'm a millennial. I was like, I was doing the same thing, man.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And so, and then they're like millennials this and millennials that and Gen Z. And
hmm
I'm like, who's the ones that are raising us? You
Exactly.
guys.
Yeah.
You
This
guys
is
are the ones
this is your
raising us.
problem, not ours. Oh, wonderful. So what was your next tiny joy you've got there, bro?
Um, Water. So
Water.
I think a lot of us take granted of water, in all forms. So like I love watching a body of water. I could sit in front of a river on the side of a creek and watch it flow. Um, the consumption of water, the fact that we need it to live and all this, it's really important, but you know, people are quick to damage it, I guess, in a
hmm
way, if
Yeah.
that makes any sense. Um, but yeah, I find so much peace and joy just looking at water.
I love it. I had an experience. I think another thing I could add to that would be watching a fire in like a brazier or like a bonfire or something. Something about a sort of rhythmic, kind of repetitive movement or so, yeah, that kind of thing is just so soothing to watch. And I think, yeah, watching the tide go in and out and rivers and flames is like it's a really underrated activity. Like, do you have much you were talking about spirituality before. Do you dabble in meditation or anything like that?
Yes, I do. Well, at least I should say I try.
Yeah.
It's not always successful. It's
Yeah.
a little hard to shut the mind off sometimes, but um, I think the best time is combining water with meditation, is when I do a cold plunge, which I haven't done in
Yeah.
a while, and I need to start doing that again. But my tub is outside and it's iced over right now, so
Yeah.
I have to break it up, and I'm like, oh, after I break the ice, do I really want to get in it? Because it does
Yeah.
suck. Like it does suck. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
like, don't get me wrong. Like you can do anything for 2 minutes though, and when you're concentrating on your breath, you're concentrating on breathing, and you're just looking at the water, or you happen to be looking up at the trees in your backyard. Um, like I think a couple months ago, I was sitting in it and I was, focusing on my breathing. I'm freezing and I would like to get out. So like it's a really weird thing when it comes to cold plunges, is because you have, like, everybody has this innate feeling of either you're gonna fight or you're gonna flight. Um, so you're gonna take off or you're gonna stay and fight. And it's really, when it comes to making your body uncomfortable, you want to get the fuck out of there. You want your body to feel comfortable again. So your body, your mind is fighting against this flight mode that you are subjugating yourself to, and you're working on you're concentrating on your breathing. And so I was sitting there concentrating on my breathing, and I was looking at the window of my garage because my tub's on the side of my garage, right next to this window, and I could see the reflection of the trees because the trees had just was starting to lose their leaves, and they're all yellow and orange and bright. And I just had this like euphoric feeling sitting there as I'm breathing. My mind completely shut off, which is super rare. And I don't know, I felt amazing. And then looking back, looking down at the water, and then looking up again at the colors, and it was almost like a DMT experience, because it does
Really?
because
Wow.
yeah, it's I mean, I wasn't blasting off or anything like that,
No.
because I mean, obviously we have DMT naturally in our bodies,
Hmm.
and you can get there through breath work. So I think I was just
Wow.
like on the cusp of and
Yeah.
getting that part of my body to react in
Yeah.
that way.
I wonder if a little bit of that as well is because we're so bombarded by stimulation nowadays with like there's always feels like everything's pop-ups and ads and there's just stuff in your face all the time and I wonder if I wonder if just the fact that you're in such a serene moment where like I've just been thinking about that now because I'm much like you it's hard to quiet the brain but I figure if you've plunged yourself into a cold a tub full of ice and the only thing you can focus on is your breathing. Well, it's like you're not having other thoughts when you're focusing on that, are you? So yeah, I wonder if you just
Mhm.
really tapped into like you kind of got back to nature, you know what I mean? Like you kind of experienced life maybe how we would have before technology and screens and everything. So that's a really cool experience.
It was, and it happened right before I talked to a guy who I had on the podcast about DMT, which was really
Uh-huh.
interesting. So, he wrote a book on DMT. He he's made makes recipes and all that, and he's very extremely familiar with DMT. And when I was talking to him about it and I was telling him that story, he's like, yeah, DMT's naturally in our body. So it definitely sounds like you were tapping into that. And dude, the colors just looked so amazing in that moment. It was pretty awesome. And I'd love to do that, to get there again. Right now, there's no colors in the trees. There's no leaves at all. So that's
Yeah.
gonna suck. But
Yeah, it makes it a bit harder.
yeah.
I
So
remember I
it's
remember someone saying that we take the night sky for granted so much. Like if
yes.
if you had kind of never seen it before and you were seeing it for the first time, it would almost be like over like too much for us to kind of handle. And I've been meaning to try and get out of the city and have like a proper good look at the night sky, but I don't know. I'm sure there's a good place near me, but I'm just not quite sure where to find it. So, yeah,
Yeah, man, the sky, it's that's another thing that I
it
really
is.
enjoy looking at, as well as water. And and I also enjoy staring at fire. Um, it's I wish I took the time more as well. Like you said, we take it for granted. I wish I took the time, because I live in technically a city, but I'm in a neighborhood where at night there's no light, and I could probably lay out in my backyard and just stare at the sky.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
I kind of wish I did that more often, and maybe I will start.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and use this conversation as a prompt to remind myself to do that kind of thing more. So this for the listeners out there, make sure you get some of that in. So we just got the 10-minute Zoom warning. I'm gonna go through some of these questions I've got now, which I think are kind of interesting questions, and then we'll get the plugs in, and that'll be the pod. So first
All right.
question: are you watching anything right now, like a TV show or watching, listening, reading a book, listening to an album, anything like that that you'd like to recommend to my listeners?
Three Body Problem on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing show. I just got done with it, the first season. I'm hoping that there's going to be a second. I'm not sure. They haven't announced that or anything, but it's amazing. It definitely, if you're into aliens and stuff like that, it's definitely a really good watch. It reminds me
Awesome.
of Project Bluebeam, if anybody's familiar.
Cool. My flatmate and I are currently watching through a series called The Ark, and so he's quite into sci-fi. So I think that we might have to move on to that next if he hasn't seen it already. Next question. Do you have a favorite meme, like an internet meme?
I don't think I do.
Okay.
I like the ones that are making faces, like from Schitt's Creek, the son with the glasses there. I
Right.
love his facial expressions, so I definitely use him a lot
Awesome.
when I get to use like GIFs or memes or
Yeah.
anything like that. So he has a
Awesome.
lot of funny sayings too. So
Yeah. Okay. Next question. So, have you ever heard of a struggle meal before?
I have not.
So, I'd be curious to see what some American ones are. Like here, a struggle meal would be the sort of thing like, it's next week until you get paid, so you don't have a lot of money, so you're making really cheap or sort of, easy. Like a lot of people will do like an instant ramen noodle sandwich or something like that. Do you have a favorite struggle meal that even if you've got money, you still enjoy making?
Fried bologna.
Oh, yes, I've heard of this.
Yeah, my mom used to it would be a can of beans and fried bologna because you could fry up as much bologna as you want, and it's like it was like $1 for like the whole thing, where
Yeah.
like for hot dogs it was a bit more. So it would be a can of like $1 fried baked beans and some fried bologna and a slice of bread.
Oh, that's fantastic. I don't know if we can find proper American bologna here in New Zealand, but I think it was like Snoop Dogg. He's made this particular sandwich, which is fried bologna. There might have been probably that kind of American craft singles, and then he put it was like barbecue Pringles or something on his sandwich, and that was like his struggle meal. So someday I hope to try that fried bologna, but we'll see. Um, Next question. Do you have a sick day ritual? I imagine it's probably a bit harder as you've got children, but when you're sick, do you have any kind of rituals that you like to do?
Um, no, no, I don't think so. I just try and I guess the shower. I'm pretty like, it's the first thing I wake up is if I'm sick and I'm blocked up, especially if it's like sinuses. Definitely first thing I'm in the shower to try and clear it, and then I'm probably in the shower by lunchtime to try and clear it. So like the shower would be the most ritualistic thing that I do when I'm sick.
Brilliant. Do you have a favorite quote?
Yes. So it is stick your chest out, keep your head up, and handle it.
Awesome.
But
Very nice.
that's from Tupac Shakur.
Yes, I love it. I was just talking with a friend of mine because you're into MMA, so you would know. Do you remember the fight between Don Fry and Takayama where they were just punching each other in the face
Yes.
repeatedly?
Yes, I do. That was an amazing
So good.
match.
Don Fry gave a eulogy at Takayama's his funeral, and I won't read the whole thing, but the opening line of it is just incredible. He says, "Takayama-san, God gave me the greatest opponent anybody could ever ask for," and I just thought that was a beautiful start to the eulogy, given that they had that incredible fight together.
Yes, that is amazing.
I think we've got time for another couple of questions. Oh, so if you could go back in time and ask anybody from history one question that they had to answer honestly, who and what would you ask?
That is a good question. Um, I would probably go back in time for Jimi Hendrix and ask him if he was ever abducted by aliens because
Oh.
sometimes the way he acted was a little bizarre. Uh, I know he was into the drug scene and stuff, but I just like, did you believe in aliens like and all this like supernatural stuff? Like that's a question that I would love to know. I wish he's somebody that if he's like a bucket list
Yes.
like to just interview for anything.
Yeah,
Um,
that would
if
be
I
great.
was
Yeah,
able to go, if I had a time machine, you know?
I love it. Okay, so we got 3 minutes left. Let's get some plugs in. So I'll have all of your links in the show notes, but what would you like to plug for my listeners to check out?
All right. So not only the regular podcast, which is where the weird ones are, but I also do a morning show on YouTube called Weird Java in the Morning. So I have my own coffee company called Weird Java. I don't know if you've seen this at all.
Yes,
But
I have. You do hot sauce as well, don't you?
yeah, I have my own hot sauce, and I actually make the hot sauce myself, but the coffee comes
So
from
cool.
another company.
I love it.
And so I decided to make a morning show to help promote my coffee brand. And I do it with my good buddy David, who you are familiar with.
I love
He's
David.
down the rabbit hole on Instagram, Facebook,
Great
and all
guy.
this. He does creepy videos. He's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, we talk about this day in history. We do some news. We do a missing persons alert, and we do things that we see on TikTok that make us laugh or cringe. And yeah, so that would be one if I could speak, that'd be one thing that I'd love to plug other than my podcast.
Beautiful. I'll chuck all the links to those down in the description. Well, that really flew by. Thank you so much for joining me, Kevin. That was, it's funny, these podcasts, I tell people to bring their joys and I never know where it's going to go. And yeah, the talk about appreciating things like nature in your kind of daily life, I think that's going to stick with me for hopefully as long as possible. So yeah, I appreciate you taking some time out and yeah, just all the best in 2025.
Yeah, to you too, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. You know, time's our greatest currency, and to do stuff like this, it means a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening to Ruddle Me This. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. You can find me on social media at Taylor Ruddle Comedy on all the major platforms. You can also join patreon.com/Taylor Ruddle Comedy for free, which gets you access to all sorts of extras and behind the scenes content, as well as allows you to communicate directly with me and let me know what you think of the show. Tune in again next Monday for another episode of Ruddle Me This, and until then, Ruddle her out.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.
Hey Ruddlers, I joined a group of podcasters that we are calling the Trailer Alliance, a group of podcasters that share each other's trailers at the end of the episodes and generally support each other. So at the end of each episode for the next few weeks, I'm going to be playing a trailer of one of the members of the Trailer Alliance. And here's one of them now. I hope you like it.
Top of the day, everyone. I'm Nisha.
And I'm Buddha Badass.
And we're the hosts of Hot Garbage True Crime Edition. Do you guys like true crime?
I really don't. I feel like you force me on this show every freaking time I come here.
Do you guys enjoy listening to victims and murderers and grotesque stuff?
People that are sick in the freaking head, that's who likes it. That's who likes it.
Well, if you like that kind of stuff, then you should totally check us out. I mean, every single Thursday, we drop the most hottest cases, and we have fun while doing it.
You drop the most hottest cases? You drop murder and death. Kill.
How many people can actually say that they have fun while listening to a true crime podcast? And I feel like that's what we do here.
So you're just not going to listen to me now? I'm just going to say this and you're not going to listen to me?
And you know what? Our listeners are not just our listeners, but they're our friends and our trash pandas. We love you guys.
They're a lot, and I will agree to that part, but I'm still just mad at you for just not talking to me. They're paying you this well to say all this.
So check out Hot Garbage on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Check us out every single Thursday. A new episode drops.
I officially hate this commercial. On some real.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
The future is a hefty responsibility and not one that we take lightly, but then taking things lightly has never been what Hefty is about. That's why we've created the Hefty Renew program that turns hard-to-recycle plastics into valuable resources like park benches and building materials. To participate, simply fill up an orange Hefty Renew bag with accepted items, tie it up, and drop it in with your regular recycling. That's it. It's that easy. It's time to rethink recycling with Renew. Particular valued resources may vary by geography. More info available at heftyrenew.com.